Hi there, welcome. I'm Susanne Reicher. I help yoga teachers and wellness entrepreneurs build a thriving online business. And today I want to talk about something that I spent years doing without realizing it was the thing holding me back more than anything else. It wasn't a mindset block, it wasn't imposter syndrome, it wasn't the fear of visibility, of being seen. Those are all real things, but this is a little bit more practical than that. I was busy all the time, genuinely busy. There was always something to do, always something I was in the middle of. And I genuinely believed I was working really, really hard on my business because I was working hard. I just wasn't working hard on the right things. What I was doing had a name, though I didn't really have a name for it at that time. I was taking passive action. And passive action is one of the most convincing traps in online businesses, or in all businesses probably, because it feels exactly like progress. It has the texture of work. It feels like you're doing things. It takes effort. It fills your day, but it does not move the needle. And that's an issue, of course, right? So today I want to break down what passive action actually looks like, why it is so easy to fall into it, especially as a yoga teacher building an online business, what the real action actually is, and how I learned to organize my week around the things that matter. When I started building my online business, I had come from a background working in advertising as an account director. So, marketing, project management, working with big brands, handling really, really big $1 million projects, managing a team. I knew how to do that. I knew how to work. I knew how to work really, really hard. And I was so motivated and excited about building my business. I wasn't sitting around waiting for inspiration. But when I went out on my own, something shifted. And without a boss or clients and without a structure that had been handed to me, I had to create everything myself. And what I created without fully realizing it was a lot of activity that did not add up to much. So, for example, I would spend hours on my website because this is what I love doing. I know this isn't true for everyone, but this is me. I was tweaking fonts or researching fonts on Creative Market. I was moving sections around. I was watching tutorials on how to write better copy. I would consume content about online courses for a year before launching mine. A full year. I actually thought about creating an online course before I started taking action. I would research tools and compare platforms, like where should I host it, before I had any clarity on my offer, on what I actually wanted to create. And what else? Oh my God, my Instagram bio, right? I would obsess about it. And no, I'm not the only one. I convinced myself all of this was necessary groundwork. And none of it was useless, exactly. But none of it was the work either. The work was creating an offer and selling it. That was the work. That is the work. Everything else was preparing to be prepared. I was unconsciously choosing these tasks because they were safe. Nobody rejects your font choice. Nobody says no to your Canva graphic. The risk of failure is practically non existent when you are perfecting things nobody has seen yet. And real action, like sending an email, making an offer, or having a sales conversation, that has risk attached to it. And my nervous system was very cleverly steering me away from that risk by keeping me busy with things that felt important, but were not really. So let me define this properly because I think this is easy to nod along. So you probably recognize yourself in some of what I shared. and then immediately go back to doing the same thing. Passive action is anything that feels productive but does not directly generate income or move a potential client closer to a decision. It includes, for example, watching trainings you have already bought but not implemented. It includes spending 4 hours on one graphic for Instagram. It includes optimizing your Instagram highlights when you have not sent a pitch emails in 3 weeks. It includes listening to podcasts about business strategy while you have an offer sitting in a draft folder that you have not launched yet. And I want to be careful here because none of these things are bad. They're not bad. Learning matters and design matters. Your podcast intake can give you real ideas. I love listening to business podcasts, and I still do. But there is a version of all these things that is genuinely useful, and there is a version that is displacement. The question is not what you're doing. The question is what you are not doing instead. What are you not doing instead? And this is a pattern I see pretty often with yoga teachers I work with. They will describe their week to me and it is full. They're not lazy people. They are working really, really hard. But when I ask them, how many people did you invite into your offer this week? How many sales emails went out? Did you actually pitch anything? The answer is often none. The whole week went by and not a single direct move was made toward generating income. And that, my friend, is passive action at scale. Real action is anything that directly moves someone closer to buying from you or that builds the infrastructure that makes selling easier and more consistent. It is a much shorter list than most people expect. Creating your signature offer, for example, is real action. Writing a sales page is real action. Sending an email to your list with a genuine invitation to work with you is real action. Or having a discovery call is real action. Showing up on a podcast as a guest to reach a new audience is real action. Building out a low ticket offer funnel so that people can, like experiment your work, get to know you, and they can find their way to your more premium offer. That is real action. And notice that most of those things involve some degree of risk. You are putting something out there into the world, and people will either respond or they won't. And yes, that is uncomfortable. And it is also the only way business actually works. This is why offer creation, so I believe that really, really strongly, should come before almost everything else. Before you worry about your content strategy, about how often you should post on Instagram, before you spend months on your website, you need to know what you are selling and you need to know how to sell it. Because without that, like if you don't have that in place, everything else is just set dressing for a shop that has nothing in the window. So when I finally got serious about the gap between how hard I was working and what was actually happening in my business, I had to make a structural change. It was not enough to feel differently about it. I mean, that was the first step, but I had to build a system that would force me to prioritize the real action first. The most useful thing I introduced was a simple filter for how I organize my tasks each day, each week, each month. The question was with every task, with every to do on my to do list, does this move me further in my business? Does this help me sell more of my offers? If the answer was no, I would either drop it or put it at the bottom of the list after the things that matters. So I started identifying the 3 main tasks for each day, for each week, and for each month. And they would come upon, like over everything else. I mean, obviously, I also have tasks that are not the most things, right? But I do them. They still happen. But like, I don't know, like preparing stuff for my accounting, but they're further down on the list and they happen at the end of the week after the most important things have been done. And those three important things, like the most important things each day, each week, and each month, they are always income generating or offer building tasks. So sending my launch sequence or finalizing the sales page or reaching out to a potential podcast guest, things with a direct line to revenue. And everything else, the social media, scheduling, the content creation, the admin, the small stuff, that happens around those three things and not instead of them. So it sounds pretty straightforward, right? And it is. But most people are doing it backwards. They clear the small task first because the small task feels satisfying to tick off. And yes, sometimes that can give you momentum. But if you're doing them instead of the important task, you just run out of time and energy for the things that actually will help you grow your business. So I want to share a story that reflects what I see again and again with yoga teachers I work with. So I was working with a yoga teacher who had been building her online presence for almost 2 years. She had a good following by most yoga teacher standards, over a few thousand people on Instagram, people who genuinely loved her content. She was posting consistently, she was showing up, she was doing the things people told her to do. But she was making almost nothing from it. And when we looked at why, it was not because her audience was wrong or her content was bad, far from it. It was because she had never built a signature offer and she had no sales system. She was creating all this content and sending all this traffic to essentially nowhere. There was no door for people to walk through. I think she had a freebie sitting on her website. She never talked about it. And obviously, nobody's ever signed up for it. So she had spent years preparing to be ready to sell rather than actually selling. So she had been telling herself she needed a bigger audience first. She needed better branding first. She needed to feel more confident first. And because she was genuinely working really hard the whole time, it had not occurred to her that the direction of the work was the problem, not the amount of it. So we spent the first part of our work together, getting her offer clear and her sales process mapped out. Not perfect, but she had a clear pathway to follow. And then she actually launched it. And within 6 weeks, she had made more from her online business than she had in the previous 18 months combined. The audience had been there the whole time. The missing piece was the offer and the invitation. So if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in any part of it, the busy weeks, the endless preparation, the sense that you are working hard but not seeing results, here is where I would start. First, audit your last week. Look at what you actually spent your time on and ask honestly, how much of that was real action? How much moved someone closer to buying or how much was actually selling? If the answer is very little, that is useful information. You're not failing, you're just working on the wrong things. Second, look at what you're offering, look at your offers. If you do not have a signature offer that is transformative and specific and priced properly, that is your number one job. Before content strategy, before growing your audience, before creating another freebie, before anything else, get the offer right. And third, build a sales system around that offer. That does not need to be complicated. It can be as simple as an email sequence that introduces people to what you do and invites them to take a step. But it needs to exist. Your audience cannot buy something you have not made available to them in a clear way. And fourth, protect time for real action in your week. Put it in your calendar. Treat it as non negotiable. Because if you leave it to what's left over after all the small tasks, it will never happen. If this is exactly the work you know you need to do, but have been putting off, then you need to join my upcoming event, the Profitable Yoga Business Intensive. It's a 3-day live event starting March 23rd. And this is precisely what we work on together, the actual infrastructure of your business, your offer, your sales process, and how to put it all in motion. Go to my website, susannereiche.com, to save your spot. There's a banner at the top of the page that links to the sign up page. Or you also find the link to register in the show notes or at the bottom of this blog post. Spots are limited to 100 people max, so I can give you really feedback and like give everybody attention and answer questions. So we are at 70 people, I think, who've signed up already. So get your ticket now. Don't wait until it is sold out. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.